It's been a great morning. I think there's been a lot of great conversation, a lot of insights into how AI is being applied into industry. I want to thank our panelists and for Vector. It's been certainly an exciting time to join the Vector board at this time. You know, what I'd like to just kind of set the context, it has been truly remarkable, I think, what we've seen throughout this session today and yesterday and throughout the week, the progress and the contributions that Canada has made into not only the local, but the global AI sector, and how we really are enabling to build on our legacy, particularly in Canada, on the automotive and manufacturing sector. But really what we're looking at today is how do we build that playbook to build broader global mobility, and as Warren said, the transportation, planes, trains, and automobiles, where AI is really going to be a critical foundational technology that's going to transition us to a net zero footprint. Earlier this week, for the first time, Canada topped the list of 30 countries in the global lithium-ion battery supply chain, surpassing China for the first time, according to Bloomberg NEF, which is a leading provider for research in this space. You know, this ranking looks at each country's potential to build a secure, reliable supply chain for batteries across 46 different metrics, including raw materials, battery manufacturing, downstream demand, environmental and social governance, and industry, infrastructure, and innovation. And I think what we heard today as part of the opening fireside chat is just how important those sectors and those particular areas are going to be in terms of the transformation that AI will have. So against this backdrop, this is a perfect time for today's panel discussion. You know, we're seeing the increased integration of AI into mobility and transportation. More than 40% of the cost of the car is in chips. And what we need to do to realize the energy transformation to a low carbon footprint really requires applying advanced AI into product and process management at a commercial scale, in a way that is deployed responsibly as Canada, together with our research community and industry partners, drive that transition to a low carbon footprint. So with that, what I'd love to do is just have each of our panelists very briefly introduce yourselves, and then we'll jump straight in with Veronica. So why don't we start, Veronica, Philipp, and Mohammad, why don't each of you just give a little bit of a brief introduction?
Sure. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm the design authority, and I have the privilege to lead an amazing team in the great ground transportation system under Thales, and we have deployed systems from Asia to America. So we will be happy to discuss this amazing and interesting topic with the rest of the panelists.
Thank you. Philipp?
Philipp Skogstad, responsible for all the R&D that Mercedes-Benz does in North America, really a dual mandate, which is bring the best of Mercedes-Benz to customers in North America and bring the best of technology from North America to Mercedes-Benz customers around the world.
Awesome. Thanks. And Mohammad?
Thank you. So Mohammad Khalil, so I'm leading the AI team at Air Canada. It's AI Center of Excellence. It's supporting the different business units, whether it's like optimizing the operations, the efficiencies, or improving the customer service.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you all here. Veronica, why don't we start with you and start chatting about the importance of the AI ecosystem, which we've certainly heard a lot about today. If you could maybe kick things off to talk about a little bit about Thales' work here in Canada and the partnership with Vector and the broader ecosystem, and particularly maybe comment and talk a little bit about the proximity to our AI talent pool and what that's meant for the work that you guys do.
Sure, I'd be happy to do so. So my team and our department, led by Walter Kineo, are also in the audience. We are working in the autonomous train. So I think everybody knows the automated train, so driverless train has been deployed more than 30 years ago. So we are taking now this driverless and autonomous technology to the next level. So how do we bring that robustness and all the amazing improvements that AI can bring into the trains? So how can we make it more efficient travel, more enjoyable for our customers, and how can the entire journey could be even improved, even better? Okay, we need to take into account all the risks that we've been talking throughout the different discussions during the day, and how do we approach this is with a partnership with Vector, is that we identify are the key risks at the research level that we would like to tackle right at the upfront in the roadmap so that we can accelerate our ambitious roadmap even faster, okay? Also, going with the training, upskilling our team, having a core team being in the different training opportunities that Vector has throughout the years has also allowed us to get the core team with all the tools. So we were talking about technology was not only is something that is not the most difficult part to master. And we fully agree with that. So we focus on people and processes. Right now, we have an amazing team in the Q1 for training in generative AI. More than 20 people across the world as well, and we want to expand that. And that includes not only the technical people, as we were saying as well before, but business people, people that knows the domain and needs to understand how we can deploy this. And on the other side is cybersecurity and safety. So the rail industry is very conservative, and it needs to be like that, and it needs to continue being like that. It's not just 5 people that are in the car, we are talking about hundreds of people being moved at the same time. So any decision that the system makes needs to be explainable at all times, and at the same time, we need to be able to change the regulations, change the policies to be able to adapt to take account and considerations for the risk and the challenge of this technology. So the technology, as we know, is going to stay, is here, and it's going to grow, and we need to be able to keep up with that evolution.
That's very great perspective and insights. Maybe we'll shift gears a little bit and turn to Philipp. You know, OEM executives are talking about why software is so difficult for legacy automakers. And on the flip side of that, I was doing a little bit of research, and those who know my background, I love chips. But the traditional vehicle has about 500 chips. When you look in terms of how that's going to transition to electrification and autonomy, that's going to be 3,000 chips. And so the role of software-defined vehicles is going to play a critical importance. And so, Philipp, maybe you can share with us a little bit of insight into that at Mercedes-Benz, as well as how you balance, you know, both the software and the hardware and integrating those platforms.
Quite a broad scale.
Yes, it is for you.
Let me try to tackle one step at a time. I think the software and hardware provide fundamentally different opportunities and need to be managed very, very differently across their life cycle. And all the legacy OEMs, they've perfected managing the hardware life cycle, and we're learning more and more about the software life cycle and how to manage that. A lot of the newer players in the space treat the vehicle more like a pure software game and are discovering, I think we hear a lot also in the news about, well, there are considerations from hardware that present their own set of challenges. So the holy grail will be to be able to manage those two concurrently and to balance those two in a well integrated fashion, taking the best of both worlds. I think that's what everyone's working on. I'm sure you are as well on the train. You know, the integration of semiconductors. I think everybody in the context of the COVID supply chain semiconductor shortages heard about those. That was one end of the spectrum, very simple, low-level kind of chips for the most part. A lot of the attention now in the public space, especially if we're looking through some of the geopolitical tensions, is actually the high end of the semiconductor space. And I think there you'll see more and more of an integration into fewer higher end chips, as well as a huge effort to just make our entire supply chain, semiconductors or otherwise, and you mentioned in your opening lithium supply chain, just making our supply chains a lot more resilient. I think that's something that all of us took away from the last 4 years.
Do you, I know Mercedes has, just a quick follow-up, has won many awards for the software-defined pioneering efforts. Do you want to share maybe with the audience here and online some of those insights from the company perspective?
So, and I think some of the things you're referring to, we were the first vehicle company to make ChatGPT available through our in-car voice interface to customers in the US under beta program, working on expanding on that. We were also the first to achieve level 3, so at that point you're allowed to take your eyes off the road. Autonomy, we've got that certified and rolled out in California and Nevada, building from there. I think key in all these efforts is to work and iterate incrementally, to not try and do everything all at once, but to take little steps one at a time and really with a focus on safety. You know, if I provide voice assistance and give you the wrong recipe for cooking, that may be one level of risk I can take. But if I'm driving down a freeway with a car full of people with other players around me, I need to treat that risk very, very differently. And I think that is somewhere we have a lot of experience in with our history of pioneering safety technology and using technologies like AI, both through the development cycle, but also inside the vehicle and in the back end.
I think it's fascinating. You and I were talking last night about learning culture, and certainly you've just alluded to that, how important that is, and I think remarkable within a larger corporation. We certainly see that in the startup and the scale-up world, but I think for companies to be able to adopt that, I think is really quite insightful, and kudos to you. And I think you just touched on, you know, we heard from just the panel before about the unintended consequences and the importance of that safety, so I think you hit it, both of you have hit it spot on. We're going to go to the plane part of the conversation, and we'll start there. Mohammad, you know, optimization challenges in all industries are ideally suited for AI solutions. And there are many areas where Air Canada, where optimization is obviously critical. There is also interest to, I think, members in the audience from other sectors. And so what we would love to hear from you is, where is Air Canada using AI to optimize operations and efficiencies? And maybe share, I believe Air Canada is also a great partner with Vector, and share, again, how that partnership, but also, you know, how Air Canada is really optimizing using AI in practical sense.
Yep, thank you. It's working.
Yes.
So I can share like a few examples. So one of the highest priorities that Air Canada is working on is to improve the on-time performance, since it will have like great impact on the customer experience. It's a very challenging problem because sometimes we don't have historical data when we say fly to a new destination, or like an existing destination, but we flew in the summer and now it's first time to fly, say, in the winter, or we used like narrow body, now we're using like wide body. Now at the airport, like there is a certain portion of the operation that Air Canada control, but there is also others like related to security, clearance, like baggage handling. There is a difference between the processes and even the staff experience before COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. And we designed the schedule like about 9 to 12 months in advance. So now we need to predict how long the aircraft will take on the air, and then how long it will take on the ground. So we're building an intelligent AI system to be able to support the business to firstly predict how long it will take, and then simulate different types of scenarios, because one day you could have like a blue sky scenario, other times you have like irregular operations, and second order of magnitude when it comes to different delay propagation and network disruption. And then take all of those inputs to be able to come up with the optimal and robust schedule that will have a higher on-time performance. Similarly, in the maintenance space, now different engines have like different components that are required to be maintained to have like secure and safe, reliable like flying. So every time you stop the aircraft, this is like underutilization, and of course will also have an impact on the on-time performance. So how to come up with the most optimal like maintenance schedule to ensure that we are satisfying the requirements, but at the same time minimizing the time on the ground. So through the collaboration with the Vector AI, it enabled us to like work, for example, for different boot camps that the team will try to experiment. Like we know, for example, a future will be happening in 6 months, so we need to do like some like prototyping or a POC. So we leverage some of the boot camps to do some like pre-start and advance, and especially some work we are doing in the reinforcement learning. Sometimes also the exchange that we have through the face-to-face will allow that, for example, there is already, usually when the team start working on a project, we have an idea, we have like a methodology to follow, but sometimes it's helpful to get like more a second opinion, or for example, if there are recent advances working on that for that approach.
Thank you. That was very helpful. And certainly insightful, I think, around the operational piece, but also how that affects the customer experience. We'll switch gears a little bit, and we'll take a closer look at the topic of Gen AI, which is obviously the hot topic, and how that's really affecting each of your company's application and really building a sustainable and green footprint. So maybe I'll go back to Veronica. Thales' leading work in developing fully autonomous trains began over 30 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And as fast-paced as software has been, how has Gen AI really impacted the pace and direction of your team to build those autonomous and sustainable energy trains?
So that's an interesting question. I think everybody is talking about the generative AI, and we're not the exception. So at the moment, we have endless lists of use cases. I think the mindset of the entire company has been changed. Everybody is proposing use cases. Everybody is thinking, how can we change our processes? How can we, optimize and improve our business efficiency on one side? And at the same time, we're looking into the different customers are really asking about AI. So they want to know, what are we proposing? And the other ones we are just approaching them and saying, we can do these different use cases. So on our portfolio and service, so for products and services, we've been looking into using Gen AI in terms of, predicting, right, or interfacing with the maintainers, for example, predicting also fatigue, or the different questions, also going through the manuals, providing the correct answer into the questions. So it's more about the user experience at the same time of the technical. And at the same time, internally, we've been discussing and preparing the different teams to refine those use cases in order to kind of answer what Brian was saying, what can we do, right? And what we should do with Gen AI. So kind of that discernment is where we are at the moment, and at the same time creating the AI infrastructure to support the different use cases with all the data we've been collecting through the different projects we have around the world.
Thank you. It's certainly a breadth and could go many different directions. So that I think that was very insightful in terms of the sector that you're looking at. Philipp, given Mercedes' commitment to really pioneering and innovation, as all the companies here on the panel, can you comment a little bit about those mobility use cases? And particularly Mercedes has really been at the forefront of a low carbon footprint. Can you maybe share how Gen AI is affecting that and impacting that? For
absolutely, and also want to congratulate Mohammad. Yesterday I came in 30 minutes early on Air Canada. Not sure if your team is to credit for that, but we talk so often about complaining when the flights are late. I want to give a shout out to Air Canada for being on time. So that was a very nice welcome also to Canada. But to your question, I truly see two areas. One is very locally, hyper-personalization inside the vehicle. That is between the driver and the vehicle. One example of what we showed at CES here is you're in the vehicle knows where you're going, knows the traffic conditions, knows that from your calendar you might have a meeting that you're not going to make it for on time, and will automatically offer to dial in for that. Might also go a step further and say, because you want to dial in, you may not want to take the curvy route for that and less enjoy your drive and more take the freeway or so to more. Want to be careful not to say focus on your meeting, because you should always focus on the drive. But I think we've all experienced that dilemma a little bit.
Or maybe you can suggest to stop by the next train station and and take the train to get there, take the call, attend the meeting.
From the train, exactly. And I do that a lot, actually, with that. And that leads me exactly to the other point, which is about integration with the environment around us. And so we're, for example, working with the cities of Boston and of Long Beach to bring together telemetry data from our vehicles, traffic light information, other data sources, weather, and so on, and determining with those cities, what are the road conditions, where does the city need to pay attention, how to manage traffic lights and traffic flow in an intelligent fashion, but then also going further to look at what should be policies and engineering, so more forward-looking, similar to some of the work that you're, I think, doing on predicting the future, and then looking at seasonal differences and many other factors. So I think those are all examples of where we can not just increase the comfort, but also the environmental footprint and the economic footprint of your journey. And I think the more we integrate trains, cars, and airplanes in that, we can look at a holistic picture and balance that.
I love the banter, and I think it really speaks to the fact that I think predictivity, we've heard that in the health discussion earlier this morning. I think that's a key part of any of the value of AI, and I think being able to do that in a way that optimizes the energy use and also optimizes time, which is the most valuable resource we all have personally, I think is really great insight. So thank you. Mohammad, we talked a lot about customer experience, and certainly in the mission critical for every airline. Maybe you can talk about how Air Canada is using Gen AI and how that's affecting kind of the operations in the airspace, but also in terms of the customer journey. And Philipp obviously just shared a very personal experience in terms of how that can improve, but certainly your perspective would be valuable here.
Yeah, thank you. So for like Gen AI, or like there are multiple use cases. So one of them, for example, is we call it like the knowledge-based management. That, for example, now a customer, in order to retrieve certain answers, you need to make a call to the customer service agent, and we receive different types of questions. For example, can I bring my dog? Like how much it will cost if I bring my bike? So there are like different procedures and like travel policies. And now the idea is to train some of the LLM models on like those knowledge-based documents, and then the customer will be able to interact through a chat to be able to retrieve those answers. Other use case, we have already like recommendation engine that, for example, if you are trying to book your flight, but for a destination that Air Canada doesn't fly there, then we'll have different recommendation. And there is also Air Canada Vacation, which not only just the flight, but it's more like travel package. So now this is already implemented, but we're working on a newer version that would enhance it using the language model. That now it's not only based on similarities, but through the language model that is already trained based on publicly available different data sources. Now, if you are flying to a destination or like different attractions that Air Canada do not have this destination or do not have this attraction, then make a recommendation based on those language models.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. I'll go to our last question before we open it up for, if we do have time for a couple questions, and this is to all of you. You know, how do you envision AI really affecting the future mobility? And I think what might be interesting is to comment on where do you see the biggest roadblock and where do you see the biggest opportunity, I guess, in your respective industries? I will, anyone who wants to start, jump in. Veronica, okay.
I can go first. That's fine. That's
Keep
fine.
the pattern.
Yes, we'll keep the pattern. So the biggest roadblock would be the certification, so explainability. The the certification, the standard in rail is quite aggressive, I will say, and hard to meet. So figuring out how to focus on creating a system that actually is able to deploy at the same time of the privacy, cybersecurity, so all these other aspects that we need to be conscious about the risk and have supervisions on top of that would be the biggest challenge. We see AI in our roadmap, so we see it gradually, as Philipp was saying, we are gradually deploying that. And in 20 years, as we were kind of discussing in the previous panel, it's gonna be a fact. We will see it everywhere.
Philipp?
I say opportunities, roadblocks, kind of two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
As an optimist, I
Yep.
like to think of the opportunities more in that. And I think it's really about transparency and data sharing. To a lot of the points that were raised here today and yesterday, data sharing, because AI depends on data. It's the fuel. And so the more we can open up, share data through APIs across organizations, across entities, public and private, I think we're creating better models, faster iteration, and also safer models through that, because one data source can help check versus another. Building on that, I think transparency, providing transparency, and it was mentioned earlier today also, into how are you deriving decisions is, I think, key to building the trust into AI. There's a lot of fear out there. I think the more that we can share those, the better, and to build the trust of the public, but also of companies. There is, especially with some of the supply chain regulations, there is actually a requirement for companies to more and more understand what they are using. So I think we can accelerate the adoption and usage of AI by providing more transparency into what's in the model and what data are we using.
Very insightful, and I think a very common, as you said, very common theme, I think, of the conversations we've had. Mohammad, to wrap us up?
Yeah, so I think the opportunities that now we'll be able to introduce like AI to certain use cases that either we didn't, like more improving productivity, like achieving higher efficiency, either some areas that we didn't think about it before, or we thought that it will take longer to introduce it there. Some of the challenges, I think, like more on the data side, like either the data availability or like data quality to achieve the higher performance. The second thing is that now like in the AI on the technology side, it's moving very fast, but in order to achieve the real benefits, it requires like a change in the business processes. There is change in the change in management and the adoption, and it might not be moving with the same pace.
I think it's a great summary to end on that note. I think there's been good conversation and good insights about how each of your organizations in this mobility sector have applied AI. I think the conversation around data integrity and transparency has been, for me, insightful. I think when we look at all of that, it's really about how do you make better decisions, and how do you make them responsible and ethical decisions, both from within the organization, but also for the customers that you serve. I'm mindful of time, but I'm going to look to the Vector team. Can we take 2 questions? So if there are any questions online or in the room.
One here.
Yes.
Yeah, hello. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for this interesting day and presentation. I'm from Canadian Pacific, Kansas City, which is a railroad. And then I was wondering to ask how AI and innovation is structured in your respective organizations, and then what would you call as a key to successful, I guess, teams working within the structure? Is it under CIOs, or how it is integrated with the business? I understand Thales and Mercedes-Benz are heavily engineering-led technology organizations. In Air Canada side, it is very much operations using within the mobility. I would be interested, what are your thoughts on organization? Is it under a CIO, how you go about it to have successful teams that can work and deploy and scale those solutions? Thank you.
Change things up a little, keep it interesting. So not just me, but we overall believe very firmly that AI is going to be very ubiquitous across the entire organization. And that means it'll change how we do things in development, how we do things in production, how we do things in sales everywhere. So that means we're across the board investing in AI. There isn't just one area or so, but it's really holistically through the entire business that we're introducing and using AI already today and have plans of expansion in the future.
So how we do it, I believe in innovative environment, right? So we work closely in defining with the customers proof of concept so that we get, quick and fast feedback about the minimal viable product. And that has been pioneered by Walter Kineo here back there. So it hasn't actually been the most effective strategy to get AI upfront, get the feedback in our use cases, and identify where are those critical products and services that will benefit our customer the most.
So at Air Canada, we have like the AI, we have like a center of excellence. So this is under the like the IT organization, and it's a central team that is servicing different business units. We have at different business units, we have what we call like more data science citizen. So they are more on identifying what kind of like pain points or areas where like AI could add a value. Sometimes they build some machine learning models that are more for insight, to get like more insights. But when it comes to like bigger scale projects or something that's more operational, taking decisions, then it goes to the AI COE.
One, no more time, so. Oh, one more, okay.
Hi, Marin. What's your opinion about the AI regulations in Canada, the existing ones or the coming ones, and its effect on your sector?
Mohammad, maybe?
So I can start. So at Air Canada, we like identified like what we call like AI ethics and AI policy. So that's now different guardrails. So for example, when we are launching like different experiments, like any AI model that we need to build, it like explainability is a big requirement. So even though we might be able to achieve higher accuracy or like better KPIs if you use certain methodology, but if we will not be able to explain the results, then we like go to another approach. When we launch like field experiments, for example, say if it's touching the customer, we need to make sure that it's like abiding by certain regulations. So it involves, we work closely with the legal department in Air Canada. So we make sure before like we have AI system goes in production that it get the review and approval.
Anything else to add, Veronica or Philipp?
Sure. We've been discussing that the third lane that Bina was mentioning before. We're quite behind, so the technology is moving quite fast and the legal side is catching up. So we've been having different discussions. We've been sitting in different committees trying to be upfront and being part of the policy makers. At the same time, we've been also discussing with our legal teams how to protect and how to build a global, system, because it's not going to be just in Canada. I have to say, we were the pioneers of automated systems, and with this partnership and all the leadership, the innovative leadership we have in-house, we for sure are going to be also innovative in bringing AI to rail. However, we need to keep an eye on what we are behind, and legal part, the policy is behind. So we need to put farther and faster.
Philipp, to wrap, any final comments?
I think follow up earlier, trust is the biggest currency, and I think as a car company, anyone in the mobility space, we know that, we appreciate that. And so if you're pushing the boundaries of technology, you'll always be pushing and ahead of the regulatory authorities. I think key there is the collaboration. Just thinking, I mentioned earlier, Drive Pilot in California. We've been working for the past 6 years with law enforcement there in a collaborative fashion to introduce that. And I think we're doing that across the board and wherever we're operating.
Well, with that, this has been a fascinating panel. I want to thank all three of you for contributing and for providing such insightful comments and practical examples of how this sector is really going to benefit, but also needs to move forward at the pace of innovation in a way that's responsible for the mobility sector. So thank you very much.